What's going on? This is GameWithSki, and I'm going to be talking about my Ice Shards Sorceress Sorc build, and we're going to go over a couple things. First, I'm going to kind of give you an example of how the build works. Then I'm going to go over the skill tree. Then I'm going to go over the Paragon tree. I'm going to go over the gear, and then I'm going to go show you how to play it at a... Well, I don't have a way to play it at a lower level, but... I tried to go back... I might go back and edit a smaller video. I couldn't really show, but I'll show you how this works. So we get some mobs like that. Some of these guys. And like this. Works like that. That was pretty good. Does that have enough DPS for you there? Let's try again. It's pretty good. Pretty good build. Let's try another one. Oh, we got... Okay, that worked. That worked. Here's a guy. That did pretty good damage. So that's how the build works. You can keep watching if you like what you see. If not, well, I don't know. Find something better, I guess. So that is the Ice Shards build. How it works is you cast a Frost Nova. It freezes enemies. Ice Shards automatically fires out Ice Shards at frozen enemies. Basically, the more enemies you have, the better it works.
I'm out of mana. I need time.
And I also shock enemies. Oh, wow, these guys died all the way over here. Oh wait, okay. Anyways, so that's how it works. I'll show you my gear next. The skill tree. Once we load in, we'll go over the skill tree real fast. You can pause this if I go too fast. I made another video and it was just like an hour long. Nobody's gonna watch that. Screenshot this. All right. Firebolt, Arc Lash, 5 Ice Shards, and then go over to Greater Ice Shards. 1 point in Flame Shield, and then move over to Shimmering Flame Shield. 5 points in Teleport, over to Shimmering Teleport. 3 points in Glass Cannon. 1 point in Ice Armor, and go over to Shimmering Ice Armor. 5 points in Frost Nova. Mystical Frost Nova. 1 point in Elemental Attunement. I'm possibly thinking about putting a couple more points in there. I just play with it, see what feels good to you. 3 points in Precision Magic. 2 points Align the Elements, and 2 points in Protection. I'm thinking about maybe getting rid of this mana shield. 5% every time you spend 100 mana. I don't know. 1 point in static discharge. 3 points into shocking impact. Every time you stun, yeah, you deal damage. All right. 1 point permafrost. 3 points hoarfrost. 3 points frigid breeze. Deep freeze. Supreme deep freeze. 2 points coursing currents and shatter. Now you're gonna swap between shatter and avalanche on like big bosses or difficult bosses. If you think you're gonna be running out of mana, you're gonna spec into avalanche. We use... Okay, so that's how it works. What do we do? Well, we use our Arc Lash enchantment, which when you use a cooldown, enemies are stunned for 0.5 seconds. So, what happens when they're stunned? Well, when they're stunned, you deal lightning damage to them. So it's like every time you use a cooldown, it's some free damage. I like free damage, and I use a lot of cooldowns, so it's a lot of free damage. And Ice Shards enchantment. Ice Shards always automatically conjure and fly towards frozen enemies. Yes. Okay, so we use Frost Nova. It freezes them. The Ice Shards all come out. They hit the guy, and then they penetrate the guy, and then they also bounce. They ricochet as well as penetrate. So you get lots and lots of Ice Shards flying over. It's basically an AoE nuke. That's how it works. You use all cooldowns. The only skill that you have that uses mana is Ice Shards. Every other thing is a cooldown. Okay. Here's the gear. Take a screenshot at the gear. For helmet, we want life and cooldown reduction. Those are the two stats you want to look for. For the armor, you want to look for life and damage reduction. For the gloves, you want to look for Ice Shards and lucky hit chance. For pants, you want to look for life and damage reduction. For boots, you want to look for plus Frost Nova and mana cost reduction and run speed. For your weapon, you just want to look for the highest damage weapon you can. You want to boost that base damage. The base damage is where everything starts. That's what you want to boost. And it helps to have core skill damage, vulnerable damage, and damage to crowd-controlled enemies. For amulet, you want cooldown reduction plus defensive skills. Those are the two big ones. I'm just giving you the two main things because it's hard enough getting two stats. Luckily, I got, more than that. So I'm just giving you the two stats that worked for me all the way up until here. For the ring, any kind of damage to crowd control enemies or vulnerable. Same with this one. You want life. For rings, you just want life. Just want life. You're dealing a plenty of damage. You don't need any more damage. You want some life. But life is for barriers. And for a focus, I think the only reason you could use a focus is if you have cooldown reduction and mana cost reduction both on the same focus. If you don't have those two stats, I don't believe it's worth using a wand and a focus. I believe it's just go with the staff in that case. But if you do find a really nice focus that's got cooldown reduction and mana cost reduction, then go with the focus. We're going to go over the legendary aspects now. Probably the most important would be When using a cooldown, you restore 15 mana. Well, we'll go. These are important here. All right. To deal massive damage, you need more damage multipliers. So this aspect here, you deal 44% more damage to immobilized, stunned, or frozen enemies. So you freeze them, and if you're lucky, you can immobilize them with your flame shield. Right there. Okay, so that's 2 more multipliers. Boom, boom, bada bing. Alright, the next one, I already went over this. Cooldown, restores mana. You're going to need mana. You're going to need lots of mana, or you're going to be dead a fish out of water. This one, explosions from the Shatter Key passive deal increased damage if enemies die while frozen. Okay, this is very important. If you're clearing mobs. Now, if you're not clearing mobs, if you're going against a boss, I have a second ring on standby. I can just swap out just like that. And this one is the Avalanche Key passive. Now applies to 1 additional cast. This keeps you keeps your mana up. I think I'm getting to the point where I have enough mana to face a boss without having problems, just because my cooldown is low enough, where I might not need Avalanche Key passive anymore. But then again, Avalanche Key passive does do massive Ice Shard damage, so you gotta just weigh the pros and cons of where you're at. You could use either or and be successful. It's on you. For the helmet, I put lucky hit chances increased while you have a barrier. Well, when do you have a barrier? All the time. This one is, when you hit a crowd-controlled enemy, there is a chance to spread to another unaffected enemy. This is aspect of shared misery. I just put this on here just lately. I haven't really noticed much of a difference. Maybe a little bit. Maybe a little bit difference. Not as big as I thought it would be. So you could go with another defensive, like Magical Bubble here. I think that's a safe bet, is to go with the Magical Bubble. Here is Ice Shards Pierce 3 times. Okay, you definitely want this. If you want to penetrate those mobs. Ooh, sounds kind of freaky, but you want to penetrate the mobs, and then the more penetration you get, the more ice shards you get. More enemies hit, more damage dealt. Okay? Especially on those big packs like that. I mean, you see how they melted? They melt, and then they explode with the Shatter Key passive. And look at that. I played for like 5 minutes. Boom. All sacred items. Alright. So anyways. Damaging an elite enemy grants you a barrier. I think this is important. The more barrier you have active, the longer the barrier is active, the more lucky hit. Or you can spread, the more lucky hit chance while you have a barrier. Okay, you want lucky hit. Lucky hit gets us mana. Right here. Lucky hit. Against vulnerable enemies. Gives us a chance to get some mana. Flame Shield. I started using this and I was very happy, because sometimes, a lot of times, I'll just do a Frost Nova, a couple Ice Shards, it'll kill the whole pack, but then you could see there's like one elite standing there, okay? Well, I could just go up to that elite, hit my Flame Shield, and then hit him with a couple Ice Shards and he's dead. So that really helps me rip up when my Frost Nova is still regenerating for round 2. I have Flame Shield to get up on that elite enemy and be invulnerable while I do it. Increase damage while you have a barrier active. I think this is a better than deal damage for each second you stand still. This is another secondary one there. We're gonna socket all our army, or we're going to socket all our armor with rubies and all our jewelry with diamonds. And then I just mixed up the crit damage ones here. There's nothing really good. I don't want to waste my diamonds on this, but I have diamonds up to yin yang, so I don't know. I just did each, whether or not I get a crit to vulnerable enemies or split it with a crit to crowd control. Doesn't matter. Either or. I think vulnerable you could use against the bosses. So maybe vulnerable might be the way to go. So maybe I should have done vulnerable instead of crowd controlled damage. Oh well. Next time. So probably vulnerable. You probably want to use this one. You don't need to crit trash mobs. You need to crit the bosses. So that's the build. A lot of people are wondering how a lot of people have a hard time getting to a higher level. And I'll show you some of the aspects that I used to get to the higher level, to make it to level 64 or 65. For one, I didn't rely on lucky hit to get my mana at the beginning. I used crowd control effects. And I thought I just saw one of these. Let's see if I can go to the tab. And if I click Y and I click Codex of Power, here we go. Resource. Show my class only. This tells you where you can go to get these. Aspect of the Umbral. I use this at a low level. Because, remember, when we're shocking enemies, we are crowd controlling them. So we restore our resource. So I used Aspect of the Umbral. I had this on one of my rings. That gave me mana to survive at the lower levels. Another resource. And then I definitely had Prodigy's Aspect. Using a cooldown restores 15 mana. If you right-click this, or left-click it, it pins it on the map. And you can see where the dungeon is. You go there, do the dungeon, and now you have your aspect to imprint in a ring or amulet or whatever you want. The other ones I had was the magical bubble. Right here. This was one of my first amulets that I used. When hit while not healthy, a magical bubble is summoned around you. Now, when the magical... You gotta have to think about this for a minute, okay? When the magical bubble summons and you are getting surrounded and mobbed, you can attack, but don't use any cooldowns. Just sit and wait for all your cooldowns to regenerate, and maybe even your mana to regenerate. Just sit there and wait. It's giving you a couple seconds to let everything regenerate. And then when that bubble ends, now you can go to town again. It's just an extra little safe place that for you to be while your cooldowns regenerate. So that's why the bubble is very good. Don't use your flame shield. Don't. Just let the bubble do its thing, protecting you. Stand still, and then when the bubble ends, resume the fighting. So I use the bubble, and then I use the elite shield. Oh yeah, here's the bubble. This is my old armor. When I was level 40, I had the bubble. Bubble boy. And then I used one where the frost... You could use this. Oh, not that. You could use... When you deal any form of damage, you can get more armor. That would help a lot. Armor is good for resists. The other one I used was... When you cast... Anyways, when you cast Deep Freeze, it restores your life or mana. You could life and mana. You could use that one. And then another one you can use is when you cast Deep Freeze, it spawns exploding ice shards. That works too. So those are the aspects I used, and you just have to be strategic when you're at a lower level. Don't just spam all your... Like, I could spam all these now because they regen fast, but when I play the game now, when I go to a dungeon, I count. When I was at a lower level, I count. I teleport. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. I count to 2. Let's do it again. Let's do it the old way, the old-fashioned way. Alright, here's a guy. 1, 2. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. Just like that. And then I rotate through any available cooldown. And if it's a very hairy situation and I have more than like 2 seconds left, I will use my deep freeze.
I'm not ready yet.
The deep freeze is kind of like a save your butt. So like 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. See, now I could just cast Frost Nova right at the beginning, but I'm kind of not doing it just to show you. 1, 2, 1, 2. Teleport. 1, 2. Keep going.
I need time to prepare that.
1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. I pressed the wrong button, but that's fine. 1, 2.
I'm not ready
That way you keep a barrier up pretty much all the time. There might be a second, you know, a second in there where you don't have the barrier active. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. Like that. See, that's how you play. And if you have the bubble, if you're getting in the craziness and you got the magical bubble, now you just let your everything regen. And you play a little slower. You know, you got a staff. It's a little slower. There's nothing wrong with that. Just don't freak out. 1. Oh. Maybe they'll all come here.
I'm not ready yet.
See? You do a ton of damage. You should do... If you have the +2 ice shards, gloves, you'll be alright. So, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoy ice shards. And if they do nerf this, I have another build. But I'm not going to tell anybody yet, because I only want one build nerfed at a time. That's why I have 4... tabs in my stash. I have all the tabs. They're all got different gear for different builds. We'll see how this goes when they do nerf ice shards. I hope they don't nerf it because it's fun to destroy everything like that. But we got another ice build ready. Ice shards or another ice build. And we got a fire build and I got a electric build ready for y'all if they do end up nerfing this ice shards build. It is still good as of June 7th, 2023. So hope you enjoy the build. Hope you enjoy gaming. I hope this answered your questions. Try it out. I think you'll like it.